Hello, and welcome to this week's Dog Friendly podcast with me, James Waters, and Dog Friendly founder Steve Bennett. This week's podcast is all about the emotional subject of lost dogs. The Doggy Podcast with Steve and James. Have you lost a dog or helped somebody search for a dog? This is a subject that has touched the lives of many dog owners. We are absolutely delighted to have Lisa Dean of Beauty's Legacy on the podcast today. Lisa set up the Beauty's Legacy charity after losing her 20-year-old cat back in 2016, and she wanted to help others who found themselves in the same situation. We did actually recently feature an article in Dog Friendly magazine about Lisa's charity. Lisa has also appeared on a Channel 5 documentary called Lost Dogs. I think they're doing a new series this year, and there's lots of celebrity backing for the cause, and even counts Chris Packham as the charity's patron. And before we speak to Lisa, Steve, have you ever had experience of losing a dog?
Yeah, I have actually with Charlie and Angel, our rescued whippets. We'd been training Charlie on off lead for recall, and Angel was superb at it, and Charlie was a quite a young dog, and they ran off together playing, and Charlie didn't come back, and it took us an hour to find him, and yeah, it was such a horrible feeling that we just didn't know where our dog was and would we ever get him back, and that was only for an hour. So yeah, certainly have some experience of it.
Yeah, similar thing with us with Stanley is that we were going to go on holiday and leave him with some friends, and we were just doing a trial evening to see how he settled within our friend's house. And we dropped him over and then went shopping for a few hours. We're going to leave him overnight. And in fact, we went shopping about half an hour later. We got a call from our friends to say Stanley had got out. And obviously he'd gone there and he decided, I don't want to stay here and I'm going to run off. Somebody opened the door by mistake. A couple of hours we managed to find him, and he actually was running around between our house and the country park which he knows. So he could have kind of ended up anywhere. And we found him, and somebody found his collar with the number on. Again, a reminder how important it is to have your telephone number on the collar. Told us he was down their road, and we came in and found him. And yes, those sort of hour and a half or so is just, what do you do in this situation? So with everybody having some experience of this as dog owners or pet owners, we're really delighted to have Lisa Dean to tell us more about Beauty's Legacy. And Lisa, I'm sure there was a life before Beauty's Legacy. Just tell us a little bit about that before this all started. And if you can do it in 2 minutes, that'd be great.
Right, so I was a preschool teacher prior to running the charity. I've always loved animals. I've always had a passion for animals, and we've always had animals in the family, right from it being a young child to an adult. And once Beauty's Legacy was formed, it kind of took over my life very, very quickly, and is now literally everything I do 24/7 is for the charity.
And what happened to the teaching then? Was this just a whole change?
Yeah, I had already, I mean, my health had already suffered, my back suffered, so I'd stopped the teaching a couple of years prior to the charity forming anyway. And I was working part-time in a sort of a leisure centre. So it had already come to a halt, but that had been my life's passion, my teaching. Yeah, and then everything else kind of went by the wayside, and this charity just takes up every minute of my time now.
So Lisa, tell us just about the circumstances around Beauty first disappearing.
She was an old cat. She never really went out of the garden, only to sit on the neighbour's wall, and then she'd come home. And she just disappeared one day. She didn't come in for a tea. We had a cat flap, and my other cat Ollie came in, and she just didn't come in. And I sensed something was wrong. We searched all evening. We searched the surrounding area, and then launched a bit of a search campaign the following day with posters and an online campaign on social media and door knocking, asking people to check sheds and their garages and their gardens. And she just vanished.
And was that a social media campaign, like just posting on Facebook?
Yeah, there was a couple of ladies that I didn't know. I didn't know at all. I just put a post on Facebook saying, my cat's missing. If you live in this area, could you look for her? And two ladies approached me and said, you know, that they could help. They could create posters for me and they could help with the social media campaign, because I didn't really use Facebook at the time at all. So they joined me and rallied the troops, gave me lots of advice about putting scent items outside and about putting leaflets through letterboxes and checking with torches under sheds and things like that. And it was great. I had loads of support from strangers as well as from friends and family. And we spent a week literally walking the length and breadth of about a 5 mile radius of my house, checking every nook and cranny. And then after a week, another lady that I knew sent me a cheque for £150 and said, put a reward on her. And I didn't think for 1 minute anyone would have stolen my cat. But I adjusted all the posts on social media and I redid all the posters in the area and said there was a reward on her. And the same day, a gentleman rang up and said he had my cat. And I went round and she was lay on his front lawn. He said he'd just found her. She was very poorly. She couldn't stand up. I took her to the vets and unfortunately she was in organ failure and she passed away in my arms literally a couple of hours later. The vets suspected she could have been poisoned, but I didn't. I was too distraught to do any sort of post-mortem or anything on her. But I honoured the reward. I took the reward back to the couple. His wife was there as well, in floods of tears, and said, you know, there's a bunch of flowers and the reward. I just want to thank you for finding my cat. And they just took it and shut the door and banked it the next morning, which was quite surreal, really. And it just kind of opened my eyes to what people go through when they lose a pet. And just in that week, my world had sort of fallen apart and changed so much. And my way of dealing with it, really, with the grief, was to keep that campaign group going that we'd set up for her and rename it Beauty's Legacy and help others that were in the same situation.
It sounds very emotional and very sad at the end. So how did that go from that sort of quite emotional situation and then sort of focusing on this charity and the people that you work with to help you find beauty?
Well, until it touches your life, you don't realise how many people and how many times a day this happens to people. So very quickly, once I'd sort of changed the title of the campaign and made the announcement, and I had an inpouring of condolences from all these people from all over the country that had sort of joined my campaign and felt for me. And then very, very quickly, almost overnight, I was getting messages and calls saying, can you help me? And the ladies that had joined me and helped me at the start are still part of my charity. And we just sort of grew and grew and grew. And it became very evident that animals were being stolen and were being lost and, you know, were just going missing on a daily basis. And yeah, we just grew in experience and numbers and strength and knowledge, really. I think as time's gone on, we've helped so many people in so many different scenarios. No two cases are ever the same. Every animal's different and every situation is different. And we've forged relationships, you know, with local authorities and police forces and all sorts of agencies. We work quite closely with the RSPCA, and yeah, we've just grown and grown and grown. It's quite immense now.
How did you go from organising people and helping people to actually setting up a charity? It sounds quite complex. Is it something you just had somebody do to help you, or?
Yeah, one of my volunteers just suggested it after lockdown. I mean, lockdown, you know, pet theft soared, dog theft soared. The demand for dogs was huge during the first lockdown, and of course, with the restrictions, no one could get a dog from a reputable charity or breeder because of the restrictions. So the black market soared. You know, they were stealing dogs to order, and they were charging ridiculous amounts to sell them. And we were busier than ever, and it became so alarming. And one of my volunteers, who's very experienced in an admin kind of sector, said, why don't you apply for a charity number and make this a little bit more official? And so they did the process for me. He's now one of my trustees, and we've got a charity number 3.5 years ago. And like I say, we've just gone from strength to strength. It's we've had so much media coverage as well, which has been fabulous. We've got a lot of journalists and different media agencies that follow us, which always helps. If you get the word out there quick enough, you make an animal too hot to handle, and that's really helpful.
What happens now when somebody loses their pet, unfortunately? How do they get in contact with you? What's the process?
As soon as someone loses their animal, the majority of people now turn to social media. There'll be a post pop up on Facebook somewhere, my dog's gone missing or my cat's gone missing. And there's so much more awareness now, and people will jump on that and say, contact Beauty's Legacy, get your dog registered on the dog loss database. they'll give that advice and they'll tag our charity in that post. And we'll speak to the owners. The owners will usually phone us or send us a message through social media. Sometimes they'll be given our website, so they'll contact us through our website. And I think our initial advice will always be, raise the alarm with the microchip company, flag your dog as missing, raise awareness everywhere, get posters up. There are different scenarios where we offer different advice. If the dog's gone missing from home, then we always say, leave the door open and your dog will usually try and come home. If the dog's missing on a walk, we'll say, stay at the spot where the dog bolted from and it'll try and get back to that spot. And then obviously if your dog's been stolen, we'll be advising to raise the alarm and make that dog too hot to handle. We'll launch a campaign. We'll provide posters and banners, and we'll door knock for CCTV footage. And then we've got a guy that will enhance that CCTV footage and use facial recognition and number plate enhancement. We work very, very closely with the police on those sides of things, and people come forward to us with witness statements if they've seen something suspicious, or they may have seen the theft take place. And a lot of the time, these people are frightened to go to the police because of repercussions. They don't want to be named, but they'll come to us. They'll talk to us because we're like a middleman. So that kind of works. We've now built up our reputation, and more people know about us and trust us.
This is the circumstances around how the dog's gone missing, and then react to it in the right way, rather than just, right, let's just share the dog's gone missing.
It's a knee-jerk reaction for people to rush out and search as well. And one of the worst things you can do if there's a loose dog that's very frightened is search for it, because it'll feel hunted and it'll leave the area. So you leave the area as quiet as possible. You pop posters up, you make people aware on social media, and you make local businesses aware in the area and local properties. You phone people, but you don't go out on the ground in hordes of people calling that dog and searching for it, because it will just run. And if it runs blindly, that's when it runs into trouble, whether that's into the road or onto a railway line or whatever. So there are definite ways and means of acting at the beginning of any situation. And I think that's crucial. It's crucial for us to be on the scene as early as possible to help people.
Lisa, there's a wonderful article in the Dog Friendly magazine about Beauty's legacy, and you mention one particular story about Dinky and Doris. Could you tell us a bit about Dinky and Doris and what happened?
Dinky and Doris, that's one of our most famous cases. Also one of the most frightening ones for me. They were stolen. They're two little chihuahuas. Doris is epileptic, so they go everywhere with their mum. They're a very bonded pair, so she takes them to work in the office with her. She takes them everywhere. And she was on the way home from work. They were in the boot of her car. She popped into Sainsbury's for milk or something. And while she was in there, someone forced the boot of the car open and stole her dogs. That was in Hinckley in Leicestershire. And again, we launched this enormous campaign, thousands and thousands of posters and banners. We did ITV news appeals, BBC news appeals. We really threw everything at it. And 113 days later, so just under 4 months later, we got the call. A lady claimed to have bought them from a man that came into the restaurant where she worked with them in a bag. And then her friend had seen a banner and claimed that he recognised that it was the stolen dogs. So she contacted me. She lived in a flat in Birmingham. And we went to collect them, myself and a volunteer. And it wasn't until we got into the property, which was a flat above a takeaway restaurant, that we realised they knew exactly what they were doing. We were kind of trapped, really. 2 cars had blocked my car in outside. No discussion of money had taken place before we got there, but there had been advertised a large reward on the dogs. And as soon as we were in this flat, several other men appeared, and the lady turned and said, "Where's the £5,000 reward?" So I had to phone the owners, who were actually in Greece at the time. They'd gone to Greece for 3 days. I phoned them, video called them, showed them the dogs, said I'd got them. I said, I'm going to send you a bank account through by text now. You need to transfer the reward. And she did, there and then. And as soon as I got confirmation of the reward being paid, two cars outside moved away from my car, and they said, you can take the dogs and leave.
That must be incredibly frightening.
I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. I didn't know that I was walking into that situation. She was very believable on the phone. I'd FaceTimed her when she phoned me and said she'd got the dogs. She was sat on the bed with the dogs. She was with a woman that she said was her mother. They were both crying. They were very emotional and very happy and very lovely. And I was completely taken in by that story until I got there. And then it turned quite sinister very quickly. But we got them out, and the reward was paid, and all was well.
Is there not a police case for that?
The details were handed over to the police, and there was an inquiry that followed. We would always say, with a reward, people are very much just either for or against. There's no right and wrong with that, other than, if you offer a reward, you have to want to honour it. And these people had the reward donated. They'd offered a £2,000 reward, and then a celebrity who I am unable to name offered them £3,000 to bump it up to 5,000, and was very generous, and had sent the money over into the account ready. So that money was there, and I would never ever recommend to anyone with a missing animal not to offer a reward that you couldn't pay. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. We get a huge amount of animals back without a reward.
So the main thing is the dogs come back. When you were telling the story, I thought, is this the point, Lisa, where you said, do I still want to do this?
No, I think on the night the adrenaline kicked in, and we just got those dogs safe. We were quite shocked when we drove away, but then the following morning, their owners had flown home in the early hours of the morning, and I drove to East Midlands Airport, and I was stood at the arrivals gate with these two little dogs, and even the security guards were crying. The whole of the airport was crying, and the reunion was just something else.
Yeah.
And I just think at that point it kicks in that actually, rather than wanting to stop doing this, I just wanted to do it better. It opened my eyes to the dangers a little bit more. It taught me to put more safety procedures in place, to scrutinise every story more, and it just made me more determined than ever, really, to stop this happening to families and to help.
And how did you get the ITV and BBC involved in this?
I'm very lucky. We've got some tenacious members that will just email and call any journalist that we've ever dealt with before, or whether we have or we haven't, in any area. We hound them until they cover our stories, or we did at the beginning. I mean, now we've like I say, we've got a good relationship with a lot of the journalists in these areas that we've worked in, and it's just, I guess it's similar to network marketing. I think we've just networked, we've just built up this library of contacts. And we're a nation of animal lovers, aren't we? Whether we have pets ourselves or not, we're a nation of animal lovers. And I think it's touched the hearts of so many people now that it's become such a big issue, that most channels and most media agencies want to help. They want to get the word out there, because it's just as rewarding for them when we then get that animal reunited. It's fantastic. We can then go back to them and say, right, do you want to do the reunited story now? And it makes good TV and good listening. We help each other, I guess.
And how does that then lead to the Channel 5 documentary coming about?
We were approached last year. It's actually BBC Studios that produced this programme for Channel 5. And we were approached last year by BBC Studios. We'd done a few items, small TV items, and they approached me and said, would you like to work with us on the Lost Dogs programme with Claire Balding? So we featured on every episode last year on the first series, and we reunited dogs on the back of appeals for the first series. It was a huge success, and so lucky for us, we've been invited back, and we filmed the second series earlier this year, which will be out at the end of this summer on Channel 5. And we've forged quite a good relationship both with Claire. Claire Balding's a huge supporter of our charity now, and obviously with the production company. We've been very lucky to be so involved in it, and I'm extremely grateful. And like I say, we did live appeals last year, and on the second episode we did a live appeal for a little dog that had been stolen in Nottinghamshire. And that night at 10:30, we got an email into BBC Studios with a tip-off, and I took the family the next morning to the property, and we recovered the dog. So it was that made a great reunited story for the next episode. Last year it was called Lost Dogs Live, and there was very much a live aspect of it. We were doing live appeals. They've changed it slightly this year, and it's just called Lost Dogs, because the majority of the programme is recorded this year. But each episode will feature reunited stories, dogs that are missing. It'll give tips and advice, pointers how to protect your animals, how to avoid them going missing. and obviously what to do if they do go missing. And it covers all sorts of things. We trap animals. We use drones to spot animals that are out in vast locations, and we use live feed cameras to monitor animals, and all these different things that we use. It's great viewing. It gives people an insight of what we do, and also the insight of what happens to that family and the impact it has on that family while the dog's missing.
So you've mentioned a few times already, Lisa, that you've got some amazing people supporting the charity. Pip Thompson, Michelle Ackley, Claire Balding, and also your patron, Chris Packham. How did they get involved?
Chris Packham, I was invited to feature in a Sky History Channel programme. It was called Britain's Greatest Obsessions. It was a few years ago, 3 years ago. And every week there was a different episode featuring a different obsession of Britain's. The episode that I featured in was all about animals. It was about us being a nation of pet lovers. So I drove down to Southampton, stayed down there for the night, did the filming, and it was Chris Packham that was doing the presenting of that episode. So we filmed all morning on Southampton Common, talking about pet theft and losing pets, and how we're all so devoted to our pets and how they're a big member of our family. And then when we finished filming, Chris spoke to me afterwards and just said, he was really impressed with the work that we do. Did we have a patron? And I said, no. And he said, would you like one? And it was as simple as that. He was very taken with the work that we were doing, and stepped in to be the patron.
That's fantastic.
With regards to Pip Thompson, she follows us on Twitter and picked up on some of the campaigns that we run. And she's covered a few stories for us and always retweets for us. She's a huge dog lover. Claire Balding, obviously, we met during Lost Dogs, and we've stayed friends. We've stayed in touch, and she supports us hugely with the work that we do. She actually named us in her book last year as well, so we're in print, which I'm very, very proud of. Yeah, so it's Michelle Ackley was part of the first series as well. She actually came out here and came to my house and shadowed me and some of the volunteers on one of our campaigns, and met a reunited owner and her dog as well. And again, Michelle's just a huge animal lover and was very taken by the work we do, and now follows us and supports us hugely.
There's so many people involved, Lisa, with lots of volunteers. Is there anything that you haven't mentioned so far of what's involved and the teams involved? Is there any other thing you can think of in helping out dogs?
Just literally 2 days ago, we've just finished. We've been on a 2-week campaign for a little dog that escaped. Her family had been holidaying in Newark in Nottinghamshire, and they live in Manchester, 2 hours away. And on their way home, they stopped for a comfort break, got the dog out of the car, and she bolted. So she found herself loose in a completely unfamiliar area, and her family went home. We put them up in a bed and breakfast for a little while, and then they had to go home and leave her behind, and we stepped in. And it was a huge, huge operation. We had 9 live feed cameras all over the countryside. We'd spoken to so many farmers who were gracious enough to allow us onto their fields, onto their properties. We had 4 drone pilots up searching the fields, and we had a ground team that were putting food stations out next to the cameras and monitoring them all night. We had people taking shifts. The community was amazing. They all donated food for the food stations and things. And then once we got sightings, the police and highways got involved and tried to keep people away from the roads where she was near. She managed to negotiate the A1 twice. She's so lucky to be alive. And, the people that worked so hard during the time that she was missing, they were incredible. People were just incredible. But then when we got her home, the first thing we did was get her to a vet because she was evidently injured. And so my vet just immediately made time for her, made space for her. They were fully booked, but they made that room to see her because she was urgent. Her owner has now come and picked her up because she wanted to get her home. Our vet's offered to operate here because she's got a possible fractured pelvis. She's got a broken tooth, which is causing her a lot of pain. She was very underweight, very emaciated. But obviously the owner wanted her home as soon as possible, so she's taken her back to Manchester. But we have said she's going to have a hefty bill at the end of it. So we're speaking to their vets today to see if we can come to some sort of arrangement, whether we can pay them and owner can pay us what she can afford, or whether we can arrange a payment plan. We support them going forward so much, even after the dog's home. And the input that we get from vets across the country is fantastic. That we find that we get such a good reception from the veterinary side of things. They usually offer us some sort of discount as well, which is great because we help so many people. And it's another service and it's another agency that we need to mention, because it isn't just us and the police and the local authorities, it's absolutely everyone out there. Highways were fantastic while this dog was missing, and the farmers with sheep in their fields, they were so accommodating and they were so understanding. And local businesses, butchers were donating meat and bones to make the gravy for her, and it was just phenomenal. It's every single agency involved. It always blows me away at the nation, how they come together and help.
Epitome of a team effort, isn't it?
It's a massive team effort, and we work with so many other lost dog groups up and down the country as well. There are several lost dog groups out there, and we've got ladies in Scotland that run a drone organisation to look for dogs. So if we get contacted by someone that's lost a dog in Scotland, we'll contact them and they'll step in and help. We've got contacts down in Cornwall and in Wales and all over the place. And it's so nice that this team effort pulls together, this teamwork. It's just so evident because, as I keep saying, we are a nation of dog lovers, aren't we? It's just phenomenal. And obviously, dogs are part of the family. When you think of a stolen dog, if I look at my dogs and think someone could snatch that dog away from me, it would destroy me, but it would also destroy my dog, because dogs are so loyal and all they want to do is be with their family and be with their humans. So to rip them away it's so painful. And I think we all understand that now. I think we're all getting that. We're all seeing that a little bit more and pulling together to get them home.
It's the same as at the beginning of the episode, talking to Steve about Stanley when he went missing one time. And, the thought that obviously we found him relatively quickly, but the thought that we can quickly access this whole team of people that would genuinely help out is just amazing.
Yeah, Lisa, I understand you recently held a music event supporting the charity. What else do you do to raise money? Is it common occurrence?
This was the first big event we've held. I sing in a pop choir and we raise money for lots of different charities. I was blessed that they picked our charity this year. So it was, I was very proud both of my charity and of the choir. And we raised a huge amount of money. It was a great event. And we do small events. We do dog shows and things. And we do little fundraising stalls at different events throughout the year. But we're completely unfunded. We completely rely on donations. And I think the success of this music event has spurred us on to have more, because it was phenomenal. It was absolutely mind-blowing, the attendance that we got and the enthusiasm and support, and people were just so generous. So yes, we definitely will be doing more. Hopefully, we just need to work out what and where and how.
Lisa, there's so much technology available now for dog owners. What's your feeling on the subject of GPS dog trackers?
I would thoroughly recommend them. They're not completely preventative of losing a dog, but they certainly help. The Tractive dog trackers are a very good brand. There's loads of brands out there. My dogs have got trackers. My big dog's got a tracker on all the time because his recall is quite poor. But I would never let him off in an insecure area anyway. But just in the off chance that he did jump a fence or escape a boundary, he's always got a tracker on. And I think it is a great tool. It's a great help to know, how far your dog's gone as well. And if you put a tracker on them now, if you do let them off lead, you can kind of map their route. So then if something does happen to them and they disappear, you'll know their favourite spots. You know where to look first. Obviously, if they're stolen, then that tracker will be removed from their collar, but at least you then have a final point where that tracker was removed. And obviously some dogs go underground. There are certain breeds, especially, terriers and spaniels and any working dog really, they go underground. So if that tracker stopped at a hole, then you know where your dog is. So yeah, I think they're a great tool. I think I would also recommend DNA storage. We've come across DNA Protected, which is a company that was formed by Cellmark, and they offer to store your dog's DNA on a database. I think the charge is just under £75. It's a one-off fee, and they just send you a swab wipe on the inside of the dog's cheek, so it's completely uninvasive. And you send that back and it's stored. And then obviously if your dog gets stolen or goes missing, and when they are found, the chip might fail, the tracker might be gone, they might be hard to identify, the microchip might be removed. The one thing people can't change is the DNA of your dog. So if you find yourself in a situation, which we have had dogs that we've recovered and we've had to prove that it's that dog with DNA, if you find yourself in that situation where your dog's been handed into a warden or the police have picked it up or we found it and you can't prove it's your dog, if its DNA is on that database, they'll send you a free swab. You can swab whoever is holding your dog will swab the cheek of that dog, match it up, and within 24 hours your dog's reunited. And I just think that is another way forward. I think I'd love to see that just to become common practice with every dog owner.
You mentioned microchipping. Do you find in your experience that most dogs are microchipped now in accordance with the law? And if they are, is the information up to date?
The microchipping system has lots of flaws, unfortunately. People still aren't always microchipping their dogs, and if they are, they don't always update the details. So sometimes it can still be very difficult to reunite that dog with its owner. Sometimes people don't realise they have to flag that dog as missing with the microchip company. So there are lots of grey areas, and of course microchips can fail. Any technology can fail. If a dog is hit by a vehicle, sometimes the impact will make the chip fail. And sadly, we're getting more and more dogs that we're getting back that have had their microchip removed by the thieves. And a second microchip implanted, which makes it incredibly difficult to prove that it's that dog. If you imagine a dog that's just one block colour, like a black Labrador or a chocolate spaniel, with no identifying features really, if they've removed its chip and put a second chip in, you're going to really struggle to prove that that's your dog.
And as you say, the DNA can't be changed.
Yeah, the DNA, that's the one thing they can't steal, and it's the one thing they can't change. And going back to microchips, there's so many microchipping companies out there. I would also say always check that it's a DEFRA regulated microchipping company, because there are some dodgy ones out there that have just popped up out of nowhere, and they'll take your money and don't actually record anything anywhere. So it's completely pointless. So, stick to the genuine databases and make sure, just do a little bit of research, make sure that they're DEFRA regulated.
And has it only been lost dogs and cats that you've helped to find, or have you worked with other animals?
No, we have quite a list now of animals. We've reunited. We trapped a guinea pig, a baby guinea pig that had escaped. We used a cat trap and a trail of celery. We've reunited a goat that was out for about 3 weeks in woods on the side of the A1. And we've spotted him with one of our drone pilots. There was a drone pilot and a ground searcher. The drone pilot spotted him, so we followed him and steered him into a garden, and then the owners lassoed him with a long line. So yeah, we've a couple of ponies, some birds of prey. We've reunited quite a few different animals, but mainly dogs and cats.
And on social media, we're all engaged with seeing amazing reactions of dogs being reunited with their owners. Does that really happen? Is it real life?
Yes, it's quite phenomenal. The dog can be in complete survival mode. If it's been out loose for any amount of time, it won't recognise its humans while it's out there. He'll see everyone as a predator, and he'll go into survival mode very quickly. But the minute he realises he's safe, when you've got him back, that switch goes back just as quickly. And it's amazing when they realise that it's mum or dad that's standing there, and the little tail starts wagging, and then the excitement kicks in. It's lovely. And obviously with the stolen animals, for even if they've been missing for years, they still remember their families. I think, a dog, it's just loyal for life. So yes, I mean, we do see some sad cases where the dogs have got separation anxiety, fear, aggression, all sorts of things. When they come back, the trauma can affect that dog sometimes for life. They might not come back. They very rarely come back the same dog that went missing, because they've gone through so much trauma. But that's not to say that we don't continue to help and support and help that family take their dog and themselves through rehabilitation, and eventually 9 times out of 10 they get back to how they were, and it's just lovely. It's just so rewarding. It's heartbreaking as well, but it's very rewarding to see those reunions and to work with families going forward and to see them rebuild their lives. It's great.
Lisa, just tell us who your dogs are
They're all here through the charity as well, actually. So my little chihuahua, I've got a little long-haired chihuahua called Rita, and she came to us through the Dinkin Doris campaign. We had alerts on all the selling sites for the breed for long-haired chihuahuas. An alert popped up saying a long-haired chihuahua for sale in the Midlands. So we checked to see if it was Dinkin Doris, and it was Rita, and she was being sold for £1 because she'd bitten someone in the family. And I contacted them and said, please don't sell her for £1. She'll end up in the wrong hands. And they said, well, you can come and get her then. So I did.
Right.
And she was terrified of the world, and she was biting. She was living with 4 children, 2 large dogs, and she wasn't a happy girl. So we brought her back here with the intention of rehabilitating her and then finding her a new home. And she took so long to rehabilitate that she just stayed. So she's here. She doesn't bite anymore. She's still quite timid, but she's a good girl now. And then we've got Kevin. Kevin is a 3-year-old Beagle Cross. His mum was stolen, and we got her back 7 weeks later, and they'd already got her into pup. She was already pregnant, and he was one of the surviving puppies. He was quite poorly. He was very sickly, actually. So we brought him home to work with our vets and try and get him healthy. We discovered he had Addison's disease, which is a lifelong condition that's very expensive. I had to learn how to inject him with cortisone injections, and he has steroids every day. So he stayed under the charity with us, and he's doing well. He's 3. He's just starting his training to be a sniffer dog. So hopefully he'll be able to help us look for missing dogs eventually. The last one is Scylla. Scylla was she's quite a unique case. She's a Chihuahua Jack Russell cross, we think. She's a long-legged Chihuahua. She was out loose in my area for 4 days. She'd escaped from her new owners and ran 21 miles in 4 days. And we had the drones up and the cameras down, and we tracked her and got her safely home. But her owners had lost their nerve. They weren't confident enough to have her back. So they surrendered her to us, and we traced her microchip back to her original owner. She'd had 5 homes since Christmas, and a very sad story, really. She was rehomed by her original owner to a lady who said she was keeping her but hadn't kept her. She'd sold her on, and she'd been sold on again and moved on again and again. And she's extremely nervous. We've only had her a couple of months here. She's extremely nervous of the outside world. So she's currently here under a bit of rehab and doing remarkably well with the other 2. So we'll watch this space.
Brilliant. Great stories about how you're looking after some of the dogs that you find on your journeys.
Lisa, your story is truly inspiring. From such a devastating personal event, you've helped and supported so many pet owners across the country. And on behalf of them and all of us, I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for coming to the podcast. And just let listeners know where they can find out more.
So yeah, obviously we've got a website, beautieslegacy.co.uk. We've got social media platforms on Facebook and Twitter. Please find us. Just search Beauty's Legacy. Please find us, follow us, support us, and obviously come to us if, heaven forbid, you need our help. And yeah, keep spreading the word and raising awareness.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
You can read the article on Beauty's Legacy in our Dog Friendly magazine. To find out more about how to subscribe, visit dogfriendly.co.uk/magazine.
The Doggy Podcast with Steve and James.